The currency supply measured in dollars is continuing to expand, probably expanding 7% a year. It's been expanding about 7% a year for 100 years. And that currency printing goes to finance wars, foreign wars, trade wars, social programs, government deficits, any kind of political program. And I don't think that's new. It's been going on for thousands and thousands of years. The last 2 years have been no different.
What Michael Saylor is really pointing to goes far beyond Bitcoin price charts or another crypto cycle. He's describing a structural shift that has quietly been happening for decades. Currency debasement is no longer a rare event tied to crisis. It has become part of the global financial framework itself. Governments expand the money supply, debt grows, spending accelerates, and slowly the purchasing power of families, companies, and entire nations begins to erode. Most people feel it every day through housing, food, energy, and declining savings, even if they never use the term currency debasement. And history shows this isn't new. From Rome to modern fiat systems, civilizations have repeatedly diluted money to sustain expansion and control. But here's where the argument becomes uncomfortable. Humanity has advanced by making everything more efficient, cheaper, faster, and more intelligent. Technology naturally drives deflation. AI, automation, robotics, and digital systems are reducing the cost of production at extraordinary speed. So why does life still feel more expensive? That contradiction is exactly where Bitcoin enters the conversation. Saylor's deeper thesis is that money itself may now be evolving the same way communication, transportation, and information evolved. Not everyone agrees Bitcoin becomes that solution, and the volatility still scares institutions and governments alike. But if technology continues compounding while fiat currencies continue expanding, then the idea of digitally scarce money no longer sounds radical. It starts sounding inevitable. Listen closely.
Yeah, if you live in the Western world, your hurdle rate's probably 7%. And so if you have any amount of wealth or capital, you want it to appreciate 7% in nominal terms in order to keep your relative wealth intact. If you construct a market basket of products that are manufactured by robots, like say ketchup or chocolate bars or cereal that comes in boxes, you can manufacture that more efficiently today than 200 years ago. So some things are getting cheaper to manufacture. Electricity, petroleum, machines, they made it possible to stamp out, 18 million pencils quicker and cheaper. So if I construct a market basket of consumer goods that I can manufacture with machines or I can automate, that's not going to increase in cost 7% a year. That's going to increase in cost at the CPI, say 2% a year.
Most people still think inflation is the problem. Michael Saylor is arguing something far more unsettling. Inflation is just the symptom. The real shift is happening underneath the economy itself. AI, robotics, automation, they're about to make almost everything cheaper. Legal work, transportation, construction, even intelligence itself is moving toward near zero marginal cost. But here's the twist almost nobody understands. When technology makes everything abundant, the truly scarce things become explosively more valuable. Land, energy, prime assets, scarcity. That's why beachfront property keeps rising while everything built on it gets cheaper. And Saylor believes money is entering that same transition. The market is quietly separating assets into two worlds. Things robots can replicate endlessly and things they never can. That's why he keeps bringing the conversation back to debasement, scarcity, and Bitcoin. Because if the future really is driven by infinite intelligence and collapsing production costs, then owning scarce digital property may become the defining advantage.
Well, but on the other hand, if I create a market basket of products that cannot be manufactured by a robot or by a factory, that's going to increase in price. If not 7% a year, it might increase in price faster. So a practical example of that in the real world. Um, the land that my house is on in Miami Beach cost $10,000 an acre 100 years ago. It costs $10 million an acre today, 1000x. The thing you put on the land, if you manufacture it with concrete and glass, it did not go up in cost by 1000x because we make glass and concrete much more efficiently today than we did 100 years ago. We just can't create waterfront property as efficiently. Now, people have noted with AIs, the next decade, we're going to automate out all sorts of white-collar jobs. So the cost to get a medical opinion or to get a will constructed or get some legal advice or to compose any sophisticated contract, that's falling exponentially. 10 years from now, we'll get this robot wave, and pretty soon you'll have the robots walking around, and the cost to move furniture around or the cost to paint your drywall or the cost to install a door is going to fall exponentially as well. Just like the cost to get from point A to point B will fall when the cars drive themselves. And it seems pretty clear the cars are going to drive themselves. So certain things are going to get exponentially cheaper. On the other hand, it costs you $50 million an acre for an acre of beachfront property in Palm Beach. Why? Well, because the robots can't make beachfront property in Palm Beach, right? The robots are, but the cost of the house on the property won't go up as fast, because if I can deploy 1,000 robots that cost me, $20,000 each, or I can rent the robot for $100 a month. Imagine a world where I basically rent robots at the cost of $100 a month and I have them build the house. The house may not be as expensive. The stuff, let's say it this way, if the robot can do it, it's not going to appreciate in price at 7% a year. It's going to appreciate at the CPI. Or, when I was a kid, rich people had record collections. And if you wanted to impress a girl, you invited her over to your house and you showed her your 200 records. And that was a rich dude, right? Today, anybody has 50 million songs in their hand, and it is not a sign of being rich. So if I want to construct a consumer price index, which is going up 2% a year, I just put an infinite record collection and infinite free streaming YouTube videos in the market basket, along with something drywall and a bunch of packaged starch that I manufactured at a big factory. All that stuff is actually getting cheaper. On the other hand, if I want to make you feel bad, I asked you about what it would cost you to buy 3 acres of beachfront property. And what you're going to find is that does not get cheaper. If affluent, intelligent, cultured people want it, it's going to get more expensive. It's what I call the Bernard-Arnault test, right? If you want to preserve your wealth, you buy assets that someone richer than you, more cultured than you, more intelligent than you will want to buy from you in a decade.
So now the real question becomes unavoidable. If the world is rapidly changing through AI, automation, and currency debasement, then why does Michael Saylor believe Bitcoin sits at the center of it all? This is where the conversation shifts from speculation into something much deeper. Because while most people still view Bitcoin as just another volatile asset, others are beginning to see it as a response to a world where scarcity itself is disappearing. Reports from major institutions, from BlackRock to global macro analysts, increasingly point toward the same tension. Technology is driving costs lower, while hard assets become harder to own. That contradiction is reshaping capital flows in real time. Saylor's argument isn't simply about price appreciation. It's about preserving economic energy in a system where traditional money continuously loses purchasing power. And the analogy he's about to give completely reframes how wealth, scarcity, and value may work in the future. Listen closely, because this changes how you see Bitcoin entirely.
If the year 1600 and you have the choice of owning a square mile in the middle of London, all the land, or owning any building constructed in the past decade in London, or owning the finest luxury goods manufactured in a shop in London in the year 1600, or owning anything consumable, or owning any vehicle operating on, on the land, in the sea, or in the sky in the year 1600, or owning all of the British, pounds, or a bunch of British pounds or currency or paper money in 1600, which of those things do you think would still be valuable in the year 2026?
The land.
The land.
Of course, the land.
The only thing, right? The richest family in the UK, the wealthy, they own the land. And why? Because the other stuff was obsolesced by technology. You can produce infinite copper tokens, and the ships rot, and the buildings decay. The land is good for quite a while, right? And so scarce desirable property means literally that. You want to own the land in the middle of London or the land in Manhattan. You don't want to own the land in Greenland or Antarctica. You don't want to own a bunch of rocky mountains. Why? It's property. It's just not desirable, and it's not necessarily scarce. There's a lot of it. So what is scarce desirable property? Well, obviously the most desirable land that any affluent, intelligent person would want. That changes, right? It used to be the middle of Rome or the middle of Carthage was, the royal palace of Cleopatra and Alexandria was pretty desirable until, the empire falls or the monarchy falls. So scarce desirable property can be redefined. But in the modern world, it would be the most desirable real estate capital, which is land, the most desirable cultural capital. That might mean the best sports team in the middle of the UK, right? Or it might be the nicest artwork, old masters' paintings. It might be the most desirable metallic capital, not silver, not copper, not palladium, but gold. And it might be the most desirable digital capital, Bitcoin. Might be the most desirable intellectual property. I own the music rights to the Beatles, all the songs. I'm the only person that can license you to listen to Beatles songs. That's worth something, right? So those are all forms of scarce. Mineral rights. I own the mineral rights over the North Sea to all the oil in the North Sea. That's valuable, right? So all of those are examples of scarce desirable property. If you happen to own those rights or that property, then you will outpace the rate of currency debasement. You want to be a property owner of some sort. What you don't want to do today is you don't really want to make money by being talented and working hard. Right? That sounds pretty provocative, but the problem is the robots are going to work hard. The cars are going to drive themselves, and once you train the AI on a Shakespearean sonnet, the AI will spit back Shakespearean sonnets just as good as Shakespeare in his prime. And so if you went to school and studied for 20 years to be able to compose, Shakespearean sonnets and great prose, that's getting to be less and less valuable. Just like being able to compose a 100-page last will and testament. That used to be valuable. Maybe that's still valuable for the next 5 years, but sometime this decade, you're going to say to the AI, hey, just compose an entire network of trust and wills for my entire family and then optimize it for which tax jurisdiction? You tell me. Okay, well, give me 16 of them. Now implement it. And it's all going to happen for $10. And it used to be that I'll cost you $10 million. And so hard work and talent are getting, human capital is getting demonetized, and that's really the lesson, which is if you think the glass beads are money and someone comes along with gold, then the glass beads get demonetized and you'll be poor if you hold on to them. It used to be that people that were big and strong that could, work in a farm field had value, and then the machines came along. And it's like, no matter how strong and how hardworking you are, you're not as hardworking as a tractor. So that's not interesting to me anymore. And I think you see the progression of waves. So today, what you want to do is make sure that, you know, you're not in the critical path of what the AIs can automate in the white collar world. And you don't want to be in the critical path of what the robots can automate in the blue collar world. You got about 10 years before the robots arrive. The AI, white collar bots are here right now, and they're going to run pretty hard.